Ashley Smith. I'm the Canyon City Mayor. I have with me today, you can't see him in the camera right now because we are social distancing. We have our 6 feet barriers, but I have Ryan Stevens with me, the Canyon City Administrator, and Derek Harvey, our Police Chief. We have been working tirelessly day and night, every day, taking care of the needs of Canyon City and our neighbors here due to the COVID-19 virus. But I want you to know that it's not just us. We have an entire team that's walking beside us as we're taking care of everything we can, from where are the homeless going to go if they get sick, to policies for the police department, and keeping our kids and our teenagers safe, and making sure there's food deliveries happening for our elderly. And everything you can think of, we're on top of it, we're prepared, and we are ready. We are 1 week into the mandate from our governor to stay at home. It has shaken up our lives. It's created a lot of adaptability on our parts, including the stay-at-home homeschooling. I now have 5 large boys at home, and it's getting pretty crazy. So I can totally understand it. And my husband is also mandated to stay at home from work. And so we are living this right alongside with you. With that said, we are on a learning curve on how to go about this too, the stay-at-home mandate. And in a leadership meeting we had with community leaders this morning, we kind of felt like we were maybe operating at a 50% capacity of adhering to those mandates. And that casualness really concerns me. The seriousness of the COVID virus is very real for our healthcare workers, our hospitals, for our first responders. We just had a first responder in El Paso pass away from the COVID-19 virus. And also for our critical workers. They are very worried as well, as they're providing important services and providing food for you, and that they have health concerns too. And so we can definitely do better, and we can be better. And so that's going to be part of our conversation today. If you have questions during this time, we'll be following those comments on our Facebook Live feed. We also have gathered some questions beforehand, and we will be answering those for you today. But first, I'd like to have you hear from Ryan Stevens, our City Administrator, and then Police Chief Harvey.
Good afternoon. We here at City Hall and all across the city departments, we're continuing to make changes, and anywhere where we can have people work from home within the city building and departments, we are doing that. We're continuing to try and find ways to keep our employees safe and keep the community safe. One example of that is closing down a lot of the access to our water treatment plant and making sure that only our duty operators are working there at the treatment plant to limit their chance for exposure to COVID-19 in order to make sure that the community continues to get safe drinking water. We are always looking for those opportunities to make improvements. In addition to that, last week the President signed a new stimulus plan for helping small businesses. And we have a team of people, our Rick Harmon, our new Economic Development Manager, and Brandy Fowler, our grant writer, who are combing through all of that information and trying to figure out the best way to get that information to our small businesses in the community. And we are putting together outreach campaigns to make sure that all of our businesses are aware of the tools that are available to them, and really making sure that not only are those businesses being taken care of, but their employees are being taken care of as well. And you will continue to see additional information being rolled out this week and next week, and even some outreach via phone will be happening to these business owners to make sure they're taking advantage of the tools that are available. At this time, I'm going to pass the camera over to Chief Derek Harvey.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I think these types of sessions are really important for us to continue as your Canyon City government. One of the things that we're really experiencing is that there's a lot of interest about the governor's order. There's also a lot of confusion about the governor's order. and confusion about what activities are actually allowed. And so what we're trying to do with some of these sessions is really help you understand what the letter is, but really what we're wanting to impress is what is the spirit of the order, and then how can we really help each other, because it's not just about law enforcement or public health guiding us, it's about all of us doing this together. It's no different than any other public safety matter. The police can't do it alone, public health can't do it alone, we can only do it with your help. And so your neighbor, your family, your loved one's safety is in your hands as much as it is in ours. And so we really want to help you understand what those rules really mean and why they're out there. And if you look nationally and internationally at things that are happening along COVID-19, I'd be remiss not to let Sheriff Bill Elder know from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office that our thoughts and prayers are with him and his El Paso Sheriff's Office family, as well as Deputy Jeff Hopkins and his family. It's a tremendous loss anytime a law enforcement officer loses their life, and I think that's one of the things that's truly important about celebrating the life of someone who gave a life of service like Deputy Hopkins did. Our folks are putting themselves in harm's way. They know the dangers, not only to them, but the difference with this is there's a danger to their family. They become exposed or carry any type of virus, they can carry that home. And so we're not only trying to think about the public safety, but also our responder safety. There's a couple incidents we're going to talk about a little bit later today that we've had questions from all of you about. We want to keep you informed so that rumors don't dominate. We want to make sure you've got the information you need to stay safe, stay informed, and stay calm. We're going to get through this together. We posted something today on our Facebook page at the police department, the graduating class of Canon City High School 1919. The Denver Post actually had an article about it, and they came all the way down here to get a picture of the graduating class of Canon City High School, and guess what? It was the Spanish flu outbreak of 1918, and they were all wearing masks. But they got through it. We're going to get through this together too. We can't get through it alone. We can't do it as a Canon City government. You can't do it alone. We've got to do this together, and it's about understanding the spirit of the law and following that rather than how can I get out of the house today or what can I go do or get away with. Because that type of thinking is why some other states have outbreaks even in their rural parts. I heard the governor of New York today talking about upstate New York and some of their rural communities and how they've had deaths and they've had outbreaks there. And to be clear, the majority of people who contract this, they recover. But there's definitely a segment of our population that would be at risk for this. And so every decision you make to go outside of your house, every decision you make to go somewhere else, puts those folks at risk. And so we really need your help. And that's what today's about, is talking about some of the things that we as a police department are seeing in the community, but also answering your questions so you can stay safe, stay informed, and stay healthy. Thank you.
All right, our first question is for Mayor Smith. What can be done about people not using good social distancing at Walmart or the grocery stores?
So this has been a really big topic for our community. I have gotten a lot of feedback from citizens that are very upset that crowds of people are going to Walmart, the dollar store, to the grocery stores, and they are not doing the 6-foot distancing. It seems to be a social gathering. But for those who are sick or elderly, it's also a time where they feel like this is probably the place that has the most germs in it possible, because it is a gathering place for us to get our groceries. We are asking that you only go to get the essentials. We are not going to Walmart to shop in the home department or the tire department unless that's an emergency, but to just get the essentials and get out of there and go home. And when you do go home, you can decontaminate your groceries, you can wipe them down, and your countertops as well. People are asking for that etiquette and for them to feel safe to be able to go to the grocery store and to feed themselves and their loved ones at home, especially if they're elderly at home. The grocery store workers, we've talked to them as well, and the managers of these larger stores, so that they will also expect better behavior at the stores among the shoppers and the workers themselves, and that we can maintain that those etiquettes for shopping, and also to have announcements to remind you about the 6 foot, don't touch everything you see. And they are worried too. It's not just the people shopping, but a lot of the workers themselves. They know that they're critical workers. They know that they need to be there, and they're providing the essentials for life, and they want to be safe as well.
All right, the next comment was keep sharing virus information. The truth is essential since unfounded rumors fill the gaps. And the chief did a very great job of talking about rumors and how important it is to make sure that we are taking those rumors and trying to leave those at the door and find out what the actual truth is. Now, I would encourage any of our citizens to reach out to us through any means necessary, through this calling City Hall or through our Facebook page. If there's something out there that just doesn't seem right, please let us know so we can get down to the bottom of it and really dispel those rumors. It's really important, especially during these times. Next question is for Chief Harvey. There was a major, I don't know that it was a major incident, but there was an incident next to the train station last night. Could you talk a little bit about that and what actually happened over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened last night is we actually had some folks that are living with homelessness, and they had some disagreements that were happening. We got called to that location, and when we got called to the location, there was an individual who was walking around with a pipe in his hand, had an injury to his head before we even got there. And so trying to figure out what was going on there, we tried to get that individual calm. Unfortunately, he would not calm down. And so he ended up struggling with officers. We ended up getting him taken to the hospital because he needed some medical attention because of his injuries. But at the end of the day, what ended up happening was that individual had actually assaulted some other people. And so we got multiple calls about that situation. But the reason why there was a number of officers there is this individual was resistive to law enforcement. And so especially with things that just like we talked about in El Paso County, we're considerate and thinking about the safety of our responders as well. And so when an officer has to make contact, we're within that space, that 6 foot gap distance, and breathing heavily if there's an altercation that's occurring. And so we are trying to get folks there to help calm the situation down and keep our responders and the public safe as well. So there were a number of cars there. That's the reason. There was no major incident. There was nobody that was seriously injured in that circumstance, but because he was resisting the law enforcement officers who were there, we had several there to try and keep things calm and obviously be able to keep some distance as well and address the crime that ultimately he was charged with because of what happened before we got there. I think there's some other rumors that are out there as well that need to be addressed. There was some communication on our Facebook page about an incident that happened at Walmart last night. And I think this kind of addresses a couple of questions that have been coming up on Facebook, both on the city's website as well as the PD's, that what are we doing about property crimes, and what are we doing about some of these other things that are happening in the community? Because, obviously there's folks losing their jobs and they need supplies, and so that may create desperate times and desperate people. Well, we're doing a couple things, and the mayor and city administrator both talked about what we're trying to do socially to address some of those needs that our community has. What the police department is doing concerning around criminal activity is we have increased our patrols, we have reduced some functions so that we can be more visible. That's the reason why you're seeing a lot more officers out on the street, a lot more presence. It's not that we're out trying to enforce the stay-at-home order, although we are charged with that responsibility as well. But the goal with the stay-at-home order is to get people to comply. We have a couple tools at our disposal to try and do that. The first and most important is education, and that's part of the reason why we've been talking about it so much on our Facebook page. You've heard me, you've heard others, you've heard City Administrator Stevens, Mayor Smith talking about that. The goal is not to go out and cite a bunch of people. But I will tell you this, if you're out committing a crime, you're absolutely going to get cited for it. If you're out committing a crime, that is not a necessary activity. If you are stealing from Walmart, and so that's actually what was happening at the Walmart, for the question that we had, is we had some people that were stealing from Walmart. They ended up having some drugs on them too, but basically they were running from the police because they were stealing supplies from Walmart. And so there are a number of things that you're seeing like that. And because we have a number of officers out on the street to keep people safe, you're seeing an increased presence. There was a rumor that was coming out as well about the police department using heat sensing equipment to determine whether or not vehicles had actually been used. It's absolutely false. It came out on April Fool's Day, so I kind of thought it was a joke, but apparently some people really thought we were out doing that. That's not our goal. This is not a state of martial law. This is a state of stay at home. There's a very specific reason why that language was chosen instead of several others that we could have. It's a stay at home order because that is best practice. Staying at home means that you're safe at home. You know the cleanliness of your house. You know the people that are in there. You have control over that area, and you can help stop the spread. You're still going to see police activity. We are still there to do our jobs. We are going to keep people safe, and if people are breaking the law, we had an individual that came over from Custer County a couple nights ago, stole a car there, committed some crimes here, and guess what? He's in jail now. So we are absolutely still out there. Our presence is strong for a reason, because we want you to know we're here. We're not here as oppressors. We're here as protectors and guardians, and that's our role, and that's our goal, is to make sure that we protect you, that when you're home or when your business is closed, that we have officers out addressing those situations. But thank you for that question.
All right. Mayor Smith, could you discuss or talk a little bit more about any more details about maintaining confidentiality of the 2 COVID cases?
So we did talk about the cases. A lot of people have asked, can we at least know their gender and their age and where they worked, and it's a really small town, and so if we release all of that information, that really violates the privacy of that individual and their HIPAA rights. And so the Fremont County Department of Health has decided to keep it general, and we know we have 2 positive cases now. What they have assured us is if you were in contact with either of those 2 cases, that you would have been notified by the FCDPHE by now. And also if they were working at a workplace, that workplace would have been notified by now if they had been in contact. Now we just did over 80 tests on Monday. So far we have 50 of those have come back negative. 30 are still in process, and 1 is indeterminate. There was 1 more additional that was positive, but it was not from someone from Fremont County. So those numbers are looking promising, but we also know that of those cases, there's a 70% failure, or only 70% of that is accurate. And so a lot of those folks that came through were sick, and so we're asking them to stay at home and isolate for 14 days just to be sure. Again, if they had tested positive, and if any more positive cases come in, they will find out exactly every single person they have come into contact recently, and you will be notified.
The next question is the burning of weeds a good thing to do right now? We are an agricultural community. There are a lot of things in burning of weeds and ditches that happens this time of year. We have reached out to Fire Chief Del Vecchio to see if there are any bans on current burn standards, but as of right now, we don't have that answer, so we will be reaching out, and we'll put more information out about that as soon as we have an answer. The next question is, can the city library be reopened for pickup and drop off? And unfortunately, right now, the library and museum are going to remain closed. It's not an essential need or an essential travel. We will be waiving any late fees for library books, and certainly want to take that into consideration. But unfortunately, at this time, the library and museum will not be reopening while the stay-at-home order is in place. Derek, there is a question here, and I think you kind of talked about it, but again, it kind of goes back to putting out rumors. So if you don't mind addressing it, and then the last part is probably the rumor part that you probably need to address. The question is, are we going to end up in martial law? We're already policing and handing out big tickets.
So yeah, I guess I'll start off with, as far as handing out the big tickets, I'll be honest with you, the only folks that we have actually cited so far are people who are actually out committing crimes. The individual I was talking about from Custer County We're working with the district attorney's office because, again, that is not a necessary activity to be out committing crime. So we're not handing out big fines. I know that there are possibilities really for us to be able to do that. It is a violation of law, but how we are handling this is, again, we're not stopping people. So martial law really is checkpoints. If you come to that checkpoint, we would see who you were, where you were going. There are no plans to do any of that. That hasn't happened. The only contact that we are having with folks is if you are not doing what you're supposed to, you're speeding or driving recklessly or breaking into places, stealing things from our supply chains, which I'll have you know, we have a lot of law enforcement very close, if not right in the parking lot of Walmart, Safeway, City Markets, Big R. A lot of our supply chains, we are taking that seriously because we don't want people to not feel safe there. So the big tickets are definitely a possibility, and so that's last case scenario, folks. We don't want to have to do that. We want to change behavior because we want to keep you safe. We don't want to hand out a bunch of tickets unless we absolutely have to. And so if people are constantly violating those rules, then yeah, that's a route that we're going to go. But we're not going to stop you without a cause. And really, by cause, I mean committing some other regulation or law violation. But the thing I want to tell you about it is this, too, is that the spirit of this is so that we can enjoy some of these freedoms with, what's the best word to say, with some discretion on your part. And so martial law is no discretion for anybody else but those enforcing the law. And that's not what we have here. What we have here is the governor and our local authorities saying you can go out for things that are necessary. You can go out to public parks for a walk. You can go outside for a little while. You can't gather in any place with 10 or more people. And so there have been some questions coming up about that, especially with Easter coming up in the very near future. But if we were to contact folks like that who maybe made a mistake or getting cabin fever and need to go for a walk or maybe headed somewhere where they shouldn't have been, the goal is going to be, hey, go home. Don't spread the virus. Don't be subject to it yourself, because if you're out of your home, you could potentially come in contact with somebody who might have it. And so this is really around help us be safe together rather than we are going to impose this on you, and if you don't do it, we're going to hit you with a heavy fine or put you in jail. Are those possibilities? Absolutely. I wouldn't be telling you the truth if I didn't say exactly what the law allows. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to get voluntary compliance, and our mechanisms are such that that is a last resort. It is a resort, but it's a last resort. The first resort is going to be, how can you help us keep people safe? And really, why do you need to be out? It's not just that you can. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So if you don't need to go out, don't go out. But don't worry about us imposing martial law or setting up checkpoints around the city. That's nowhere on the horizon unless we start having some significant outbreaks because the methods we're using now are not working. I saw some video from Detroit. Police officers in Detroit and New York City have lost their lives to COVID. I saw a video last night of Detroit, of Times Square. These places that normally have thousands of people going through them all the time, desolate. Nobody there. That's what we need here, folks. It's not that you got to be scared of the law or scared of the police. We're here to help you. We're here to protect you. But be scared of why we have this in place. And if you're going out just to go out, that's what you should really be scared of. Not of the police, because we're here to help you and do our jobs.
I would like to add to that some of our biggest concerns are teenagers who are used to having some freedom, and their peer group is really important to them. This has been really rough adaptation to be away from those friends. And so we have had some problems with gatherings at the high school parking lot or at Centennial Park, Veterans Park, the Hogback Skyline. And we, as parents, we need to keep our kids home. We need to keep them safe. I know it's tough, but we need to use our devices as best we can to help them to have the best life that they can still during this time. And also, again, the shopping etiquette has been a really big concern. That shopping is not a chance to see some human faces and see some warm bodies. It's just a chance to go get what you need and go back home.
Chief Harvey?
Yeah, so Mayor Smith, thank you for adding that. And I just want to say one other thing. We've been getting a lot of questions, and I know the city has as well, and so has public health, about what are some ways that we can, and I really applaud these folks for thinking outside the box. How can we stay safe, but still gather together for really important things? I know birthdays are important for folks. Like I mentioned already, Easter is really important for a lot of our faith-based community here. And so we've had questions about, well, what about drive-in movie theaters? What about church services that are broadcast over FM, but we've got everybody in the same area, but they're in different vehicles? So we as a city actually reached out, because that's a concern for our community, to the governor's office to ask for some clarification on that. And they asked us to talk with public health locally, but gave us some guidance that really doesn't fit the spirit of the law. It truthfully doesn't fit the letter of the law either. And so the guidance that I've been giving folks that are telling us that is, you're supposed to stay at home. I understand the need and the want to gather together, even in vehicles, and it seems like that would be safe. There are some, obviously, perils there. There's some logistical issues. And so in my conversations, and I don't think, but if you guys got anything different, please share that. But that's not considered a lawful gathering. And so even if you were in your car with 20 or 30 people in 20 or 30 vehicles, obviously that can create some problems, but that's not a lawful gathering. That's a mass gathering that actually violates the governor's order. And so those types of things, but if things change, either with our local public health allowing those, or the governor's office giving us some greater guidance, we'll get that information out right away. And I understand cabin fever is a real thing and people really want to get out, but one of the things that we're doing is if your child has a birthday and it's very difficult to, obviously we can't have other people over at the house, if you let us know on our Facebook page, we're going to have a patrol car or a couple of patrol cars come by with lights and siren and sing happy birthday and pull in front of the house. So that way they will at least have some memorable experience for a birthday this year. Those are things that we can do, and so that's why I said I really applaud folks for trying to think of how can we stay safe, follow the law, and if you have questions like that, please ask us, because I'd rather you ask us and us be able to give you some guidance or come up with a great idea. Like we didn't come up with that idea. We actually got it from another community about law enforcement celebrating birthdays around the city. So we're looking at that for adults as well. Keep thinking about those innovative ways, but remember the spirit of the law. Stay home. Thank you.
And we have had a lot of innovation for reaching out and bringing hope to our community. We have the Rainbow Light Show on our bridge at Centennial Park for you to drive by and enjoy, or enjoy from the green space privately. Paula Shagley's also been playing the carillon, I can't pronounce that properly, but the bells at the Abbey. And it's beautiful to hear those Abbey bells ringing. But we also need to ask that you do that from a distance and you do it privately. That we can't have a parking lot full of cars there at the Abbey, but she will be able to continue to play. And so I love the idea of the birthday with the cops coming by. That's totally awesome. I'd love to hear more of those ideas. We have, I have my Facebook page, Ashley Smith, Canyon City Mayor. I'd love to hear what you're doing and what your ideas are, and we'll spread that word and get that information out as a way to be positive and to celebrate the good things that we can do as we come together.
All right, the next question is, what are we doing to preserve Canyon City's prosperity? As I mentioned earlier, we are working on an outreach plan. We have a group of business leaders that are getting together to put out newsletters and resources. The Canyon City Economic Development Facebook page has a lot of links. The canyоncity.org website has a page specifically filled with business resources, and we're currently working on a hotline and call outreach initiative to reach out to our business owners to make sure that they're aware that all of these resources are available. And I think during this time, it's really hard for a business owner to see their business shuttered right now. And we're doing everything that we possibly can to reach out to them and make sure that they have those tools and resources available to them. I think we have asked and answered this question. The next one is for Chief Harvey. How do we preserve First and Fourth Amendment rights and keep people safe? And the second part of that question is this a role of the police or citizens themselves to monitor their activities and engagement?
So that's a great question, and obviously somebody that understands constitutional law. Just kind of as a recap, the First Amendment guarantees free speech. It also guarantees the right of assembly, and so that I think that's really what the crux of this conversation is that the Fourth Amendment is the right to be free against unreasonable search and seizure in our homes, persons, properties, and effects. And so the seizure is really the important part of that question, I think, with the First and Fourth Amendment. And so what we're talking about here is with the stay-at-home order, whose job is that really to stay at home, or it's a constitutional right to be able to assemble. It's a constitutional right to be able to move freely without interference from the government, and that is absolutely true. What's also true is your rights cannot interfere with someone else's rights. And so the best example I can give you is we have the right of free speech. It's part of the reason why I mentioned it on the First Amendment. However, if you go into a crowded movie theater and yell fire and someone gets trampled, you can be held liable for that, regardless of whether it's a constitutional right or not. If you're out committing crimes, you can be seized. And to be clear, the stay-at-home order is a law. So I think what we are saying is that we're trying to preserve those rights, but we're also looking at overall public safety. And to answer the last question, it's both. It's not just our job, it's everyone's job. And so if you know what the stay-at-home order says, and if you know what the tenets and the spirit and all those things are, we're backup. Robert Peel said it best: the police are the public and the public are the police. We have this job together, and if we don't work together, it doesn't work. Imposing martial law, dictatorial regimes, we've seen that in other countries, and that doesn't work well. Understand what the premise of this is, and it is to keep everyone safe. We're not saying that you can't go out. We're not saying you can't go take care of necessary life activities. But we also want you to understand that those constitutional rights have limits when it affects public safety and the welfare of the public. But let's do this together. Don't make it my job. Make it everyone's job. Thanks.
All right. The next question is also for Derek. Is there any enforcement on the Riverwalk? And it sounds like by the basis of this question, they're seeing people gathering, and we have patrol cars out on the streets and in the community. What's being done on some of these harder to access areas, like the Riverwalk?
So that's a really great point, is that, obviously for law enforcement, it's a lot easier to patrol well-traveled streets, and our patrol vehicles are close to all the equipment and things that we need. And so the Riverwalk is, we got to get out and walk, and we got to get on bikes. But we are absolutely doing that. So the Riverwalk is only one place that we've heard where there are gatherings that are making people uncomfortable or are unsafe. And so we're taking not only Canon City High School, the Rural Gorge train parking lot, Skyline Drive, the Royal Gorge. There's several places, not just the Riverwalk, where these things are occurring. And so that's part of the reason for our education efforts, but we actually have officers specifically assigned to go to the Riverwalk, Red Canyon Park, Temple Canyon. We have officers that are going out to those locations specifically to make sure that we're following. And by no means are we saying that that's closed. We want you to go out. We want you to be able to go to a park, get some fresh air, clear your head, maintain the 6-foot distances, maintain the prohibition against social gatherings. But go out is the point if you need to get out. But if you can stay at home, stay at home. I mean, I can't beat that enough. The Governor Polis said that several times, but I also want you to understand that there are exceptions to it. Go into these parks, go into your front yard, those things are somewhat exceptions as long as they're not gatherings. We do have officers, Officer Ken Zabruski, who is our park patrol officer, is actually going out and doing some of those. He was doing some of it today, and we have some patrol officers that are also assigned to other specific areas. So we absolutely will be out there. You'll see us there, just like you see us in town.
Okay, we have a question that came in on the Facebook Live page under the comments. asking what the criteria or guidelines were for COVID testing. And the county health department does have a testing plan. There's 2 tiers to that plan, and I'm going to read those right now. Tier 1, patients that are hospitalized will be tested by the hospital. Healthcare workers with symptoms, St. Thomas More will test their employees. And Tier 2 would be patients in long-term care facilities or other residential settings that are exhibiting symptoms. Patients over the age of 65 with symptoms. Patients with underlying conditions who are exhibiting symptoms. First responders with symptoms. And critical infrastructure workers with symptoms. And then people who have symptoms who work with vulnerable populations in group residential settings. All of those are currently the folks that are eligible for testing. You do have to have a order from your doctor in order to be tested, and Fremont County Health Department will be they'll be conducting testing on a weekly basis with the next one Wednesday.
Well, Thursday this week and then Wednesday.
Yeah, Thursday this week and then Wednesday next week.
All right, I think that's all the questions that we have right now. I do want to let you know that we are going to be conducting this Facebook Live every single Thursday at 4 p.m. for probably throughout the month of April, so we can keep you updated and be transparent and answer the questions and stop the rumors that are coming through. I also want to take this time to thank so many people who have been creative in helping to stay positive and for reaching out and being someone, kind of that light of service to our community and to those in need. The RE1 schools, Canyon City High School Encore students have made a number of commercial videos about washing hands. They're absolutely adorable and cute. It's part of their it's part of their homeschool education. I'd love to be able to share those with you. We also have the Yarned and Dangerous store. Their store has had to close, but they made giant face masks for our dinosaurs so that we could have a visual reminder of this health and safety precautions we need to be taking. Also, for Stitches Quilt Shop, they have gotten a lot of volunteers together to do a lot of sewing for our community. They have made and distributed 740 masks, which is incredible. And now they also have donated 30 yards of fabric to make PPE gowns for our first responders to help keep them safe and protected. We also have a number who have made ponytail scrub hats for our medical providers, for those in the hospital that are actually working with COVID patients right now. These particular hats were sent up to El Paso, which is totally awesome. The doctors appreciated it. They tell stories of how their faces are bruising from wearing those hospital masks all day. And so a lot of people are gathering together and really helping in really positive ways. Home Start Realty is also accepting donations. The Department of Health is collecting items for those who have to go into self-isolation away from home, or if they're homeless and need to go into self-isolation. And you can find those things on their Facebook page. They're looking for hygiene items, reading books, colored pencils and crowns, jigsaw puzzles, crossword puzzles, word search, and board games. And that's to help those who will likely need to go into self-quarantine for 14 days. And they're collecting those in a very responsible way. What we've been asking of you today is real. It's very legitimate to stay at home. We're asking you to make that choice for yourself. We have been teaching correct principles and good practices, and we're asking for you to make that choice to adhere to those for your safety, for your family's safety, and for the safety of those in our community. And to stay positive too as we go through that. Just a fun little story to end. At our home, I mentioned we have five children. Well, 5 of our boys are here. It's getting pretty wild. We have goal sheets for each of them. And our 9-year-old set a goal to do a good turn daily. And he asked me yesterday, he says, Mom, I need to do my good turn. I want you to know I'm available right now to wrestle with you to help you through this COVID virus. And so we have been doing a ton of wrestling at home. I thought I was the one doing the good turn daily. But we're getting creative at home and making the best of it and enjoying those times and the memories that we're making together. And so that's an opportunity to do a little bit better. So Canyon City, remember that you're not stuck at home. You're safe when you're at home. And we're asking you that you can be better, and please do better for the sake of our community and our health. The sooner we can flatten the curve, the better. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we'll see you next week. Please keep up with your questions. We're happy to answer them.